Chapter 8 Hero. The pearl gray light of dawn streaked the sky as Hollis eased himself into the dark water. The axe stuck down the right leg of his basketball shorts. He'd come up with his plan the night before. Get up before anyone else, sneak the axe from Jonas, and swim out and save the trapped family. It would be easy. He was an excellent swimmer. The water was warmer than he'd expected, and now that he was in it, he could see that there was more junk in his way than he thought. But he remained confident, driven by his visions of heroism from the night before. Once again, he saw an image of the surprised look on G's face. She'd be mad at first, he knew that, but she'd get over it, and then she'd see. He was a hero. He was grown. Again, he saw the pride in her eyes when he was given a medal. There would surely be a medal. Then she would tell him that he could find his father. "Anything you want, Hollis, anything you want," she'd say. The smile he'd gone to sleep with last night reappeared on his face. Hollis pushed away from the house and kicked toward the street. The axe hampered him, slowing his ability to raise his right leg. He adjusted the handle back, but it kept wagging forward and getting in his way. His clothing also felt odd in the water, especially his shoes. Floating back to the roof, he took them off and laid them on the shingles. The breaststroke seemed like the ideal choice because his hands could clear boards and bits of debris out of his way, and he could keep his face out of the disgusting liquid. A thick tuft of twigs refused to budge. His fingers followed them down, and they turned into branches and then into a 10-foot silver maple, standing where it always had, but now hidden beneath the water. The deluge had pounded into the houses, cars, and gardens, stripping them away and lifting the debris and tumbling it along to bash and scour away even more. The trees had acted like nets, catching the flotsam in their branches and causing even more of a roadblock for Hollis. He tried to clear a path by pushing aside the laden branches until he grabbed a block of wood caught in some twigs and just missed spiking himself on the nails sticking out from underneath. Pitching the wood out of his way, he paused, treading water, and closed his eyes to better picture the neighborhood he'd lived in all his life. His eyes opened again, he executed a quick side stroke, which took him past where he recalled the tree being. He paddled forward again with slow, careful movements. The greenish-brown gumbo burbled around his body. Trash bobbed everywhere, and a colorful chemical glaze floated on the surface. G was right, it stinks. Hadn't noticed it before. Sewer water and motor oil. It makes sense. I bet there's a lot of cars under here. A half-submerged Rubbermaid bowl with the price sticker still on it, a toothbrush, and a small contingency of green plastic army men told Hollis that houses closer to the levee might not have survived the inundation. A stiff and staring squirrel revealed that houses weren't all that had suffered. Reaching the halfway point made him feel more confident. Then something new floated by. As the thing drifted past, one word formed in Hollis's brain, and his heart gave a sickening jerk, slamming it into overdrive. Snake. He thrashed at the water, trying to use it to push the reptile away, but the snake only rocked back and forth and turned over on it to its back. Oh, Hollis poked at it. Dead snake. He looked around, wonder how many live ones are in this mess. He glanced back at his house, half wishing he'd brought Jonas along. He could see no movement on the roof. I'm almost there. I have to finish. The house where the people had called for help was a bit taller than the Williams' house. He reached up with the axe, caught the edge of the roof, and hauled himself high enough to grab onto the eave. Relief overwhelmed him when he heard footsteps scrambling toward him, after he called out, "Yo!" A man's head appeared over the eave. "You need help?" the man asked. "No, I got an axe." "Where are the people you said needed to get out?" "Came from that way, 6 houses down on the next street over. Someone said they heard people inside yelling for help." He shot a sideways glance at Hollis. "That's kind of a long way. You sure you up for it?" The smile Hollis sent up wobbled, but he nodded and released his hold on the eave, dropping back down into the water. The axe stowed away again. He propelled himself through the backyard and headed for the next street. As he swam, he tried to picture what he knew of that area, and he couldn't remember much. Hollis squared his shoulders in the water. He was committed now. 15 minutes later, and 2 houses from his goal, he ran across another waterlogged tree with debris stuck in its branches. Only this time, the debris wasn't wood with nails sticking out. It was a car. The car was upside down and jammed tightly in the branches. 3/4 of it lay under the water. Only the nose and the front wells rose out of the muck. Hollis found a back tire with his foot and pressed down on it, trying to determine how firm the tree's hold on the car was. Nothing moved. Not the car, not even the branches. Nevertheless, Hollis had no intention of climbing over the car or into the tree. He struck out to the left, intending to swim around the entire obstacle, and bumbled into an enormous snarl of wire. Before he was aware of his danger, he was trapped deep in the clutches of the tangle. Panicked, Hollis jerked and kicked, fighting against the wire, which only tightened its grip. He began to sink. Whatever had been holding the nest of wire up had released it. The mass was dropping, and Hollis, in his arms and legs somewhat restrained, was going with it. As the liquid closed over his head, a cold finger of caution cut through the shock, and he stopped fighting the wire and concentrated on finessing the water. Careful, gentle movements helped get his head above the liquid. He maneuvered his way back to the car in the tree. His feet found the tire he had kicked earlier, and he stood on it. Head and shoulders now out of the water, he rested and checked out the trap ensnaring him. "Hey, son!" A man's voice boomed in the morning quiet. Hollis pivoted carefully to the right and saw a man and 2 kids staring at him from the roof of the nearest house. "You okay out there?" "No," Hollis shouted back in relief. "I'm caught up in some wire. Can you help?" "Nah, what if I could, but I can't swim. Is there anyone I can call for you?" "You got a phone?" Hollis felt surprised. G's cell phone lay under the water. "I do. It don't work, though. Can't get nobody. I meant call like yell, house to house. Where'd you come from?" Hollis told him as he began extricating his arms from the mass of wire. Now that could see what he was doing, removing the wire was easy. It would be humiliating to have to get Jonas out to help him at this point. "I think I'll be okay, though," he said. "Thanks." The man waved, but he and the 2 kids continued to watch Hollis as he struggled to get out of the wire. "Best reality show around," Hollis said to himself, and he pulled a loop of wire over his head. Everything went well until he got to his hips, which were far enough under the water that they couldn't be seen. At that point, his attempts to loosen the wire resulted in feeling tighter. If only he could get higher up, out of the water, where he could see. His eyes wandered over the way the car sat in the tree. He placed his foot farther up the chassis of the car. His waist rose out of the water, and he could see the mistake he'd been making in trying to loosen the wire around his body. After a few quick movements with his hands, most of his upper body was free. One more step forward would allow him to complete his escape. He took his step, or tried to. His left foot, under the water, only moved a couple inches before it yanked to a halt. Hollis's eyes closed in disbelief. The wire was snagged on the car. Forward, back, forward, right, back, left, right, forward, back. No combination of movements with his foot seemed to succeed. Bending over to work under the water hadn't been effective either. Water kept going up his nose and made him feel dizzy. After almost falling over 3 times, Hollis decided he needed help. He put his hands on his hips and turned his attention to the man and the 2 kids that were still watching him. "You ready for that call?" the man asked. "You stuck?" "Yeah, I'm the next street over, 4 houses down, and across the street." Hollis could see the grin on Jonas's face when he first made his appearance on the street. He still hadn't been able to free his foot. He watched Jonas approach, the smirk just getting bigger and bigger with each stroke. "So what's new, Blues?" Jonas stopped just short of the car, treading water. "Stuck." Hollis held up some of the wire. "Foot got tangled up." "Which foot?" "Left." "Give me the axe." "Why?" He handed the tool to his brother. "Worst comes to worst, I'll just cut off your leg." The axe disappeared under the water as Jonas stowed it away. "Ha ha," Hollis said. Jonas swam forward, put both hands on Hollis's left leg, and disappeared under the water. Seconds ticked by while Hollis felt Jonas tugging and working the wire. He surfaced. "Gonna have to get higher. You think if I put my feet down, this car is gonna stay in the tree?" Hollis shrugged. It hasn't budged, and I've been climbing all over it. Jonas bit his lip. I'm not chancing my weight on it. This car goes, you go too. I tap your leg once, pick up your foot. Twice, put it back down. Okay? He submerged. Hollis followed directions several times, picking up his foot and putting it down at Jonas's urging. Finally, Jonas surfaced. I think I got it. He disappeared again, and Hollis felt the pressure of the wire leave his ankle. Jonas came up, wiping water from his face. Okay, gotta get those people out, Hollis said. You still got the axe, right? Hang on, I want to see if we'd have been okay. Jonas rose out of the water until he was standing next to Hollis upright on the car. Nothing happened. I guess we would have. That's good, Hollis said, because I'm pretty sure I've still got some wire around my other. Just then the car shuddered and slid out of the tree. Around your other what? Jonas said, panic in his voice. Knee, Hollis yelped. The car disappeared, and Hollis was yanked under the water, Jonas right behind him. A moment later, both boys surfaced next to each other. What happened? Jonas asked, gasping for air. Came loose. I guess you got enough of it off. Hollis scrambled into the tree. Man, that was too much. Jonas jerked his head. Come on, we need to get you back to G. But Jonas, the house is right over there. Let's get the family out first, then go home. Nope, I promised G I'd bring you right back. Gotta go. Now. But you know how hot it gets in attics. You ain't getting me in trouble, Hollis. We're going back now. It took much less time swimming back than it had going over. Only a few minutes seemed to have passed before they were able to see Letta and Algie. Both stood in the same position, one hand on a hip, the other hand shading their eyes, watching for them. Hollis waved. Letta waved back, but had to restrain Algie from jumping up and down. Race you, Jonas said. Hollis nodded and struck out to swim across the street. He remembered the obstacles he'd encountered on his original swim and avoided them. He hoped Jonas didn't remember as well, so that he'd win the race. Letta waited at the edge of the roof to help him up. She grabbed his hand and said, Where's Jonas? Hollis jerked his hand away and turned around in the water. His brother was nowhere to be seen.